Boy, I've done forgot more than you know. You're going to have to break that down because...
I'll break it down for ya.
I'm just a lifelong learner. Harmful.
You have my mic. All right.
Hello. No. Feeling good? You feeling energized? Feeling pumped? Hello and welcome. Remove your water bottle. It's just in the way. Not there. Your knee is in my zone.
Bless you. Hello and welcome to the Anatomy of Marriage podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
My name is Seth Studley. What's up, people?
And today we're talking all about fighting.
Oh, man.
We had a really stupid fight the other evening.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so stupid, in fact, that I needed to draw a diagram.
Yeah. Was this the one when part of it was outside and I was really upset? Or was it after that one? Was it another fight after
this
that
was another one.
Oh, man.
So I also want to mention before we start, if you're listening to this, you can be watching it on our YouTube channel.
That's right.
Because we have videos and all that jazz. So I keep forgetting to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And before we start, we want to read the review of the day. This says, really, really good. I was introduced to the Anatomy of Marriage podcast by a lady in a coffee shop. Turns out that lady was Melanie Studley.
Oh, a little self-promotion there.
Had I known how incredibly dynamic this podcast was, I would have certainly asked for her autograph. Right then and there.
Oh, God.
The podcast is creative, inspiring, innovative, and real. So much really good information. Seth and Melanie tap the hearts and minds of a bunch of incredible family and marriage professionals to provide the very best information on marriage. I will definitely be sharing it with each and every one of my pre-marriage couples and every other married couple who will listen. Thanks for the work you're doing. Hashtag 5 stars.
All right.
Hashtag high five. That's a pretty funny story because we were at Maple Valley Days and we saw a woman doing premarital counseling and Seth's like, Melanie, go do your magic. And so I took a napkin and I asked for a Sharpie and I wrote anatomyofmarriage.com, Anatomy of Marriage podcast on 2 sets of napkins, handed them out.
That's awesome.
We did our magic.
Thanks. Maybe I should put you in the budget for advertising or for marketing there. Okay. I'll give you $1, right? I wanted to say, if you like what we do, if it's been helpful to you, then please go to patreon.com/anatomy of marriage. The patrons that we have now are unbelievable. They are awesome. We want to thank.
So what's that? Wait.
What?
Patreon dance party?
Did I hear you right?
Throw them down! Your head's not in it.
Okay.
That doesn't have elbows.
I don't have elbows.
We love you, patrons. We love you.
Yes. So if this has been helpful, if it's considered free therapy, please support us and go to patreon.com/anatomy of marriage and give whatever you can. $1, $2, don't matter.
If you give 15, you get a free sticker and access to the Patreon supported video.
This is correct.
And for the Patreon supported videos, we want your questions. It's going to be an AUA.
What is that?
Ask us anything.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So you can ask us any question you want. Doesn't need to be marriage related at all.
All right. Harmful.
You have my mic. All right. Fighting. Like I said, we got into a really terrible fight the other day. It was so stupid. And how did it start? Remember, it got worse when you parked the car and hit the trees with the van.
Yeah.
You ran into the shrubs with the trees, which I always ask you not to do, and you did it. And it made me super mad. Oh, I know what it was about. Get this. Stupidest fight ever. Hashtag also important, though.
Yes.
So I was saying to Seth, this is a lot to take care of. A lot of hair is a lot to take care of.
Right.
And it sounds really silly, but it's a total gender construct that I need to have long hair or that it makes me more beautiful. It just is a huge waste of my time. And I was thinking about it and I was like, hey, I have long hair because you enjoy me having long hair, right? He doesn't like my hair short. And not that that's whatever. I like to braid my hair. So it's not like I only think to have long hair because of him, whatever. But I said, would it be possible if you want me to keep my long hair, can you do the dishes more? But I said this. He said, well, what would it look like if you were to keep your long hair? And I said, do the dishes. And that's literally what I said. And you got so mad at me because you were like, what do you think? I don't ever do the dishes. It's like, that's really not what I said. please do the dishes more. And then you just got mad. And then you ran into the shrubs with the trees. And ran into the shrubs with the van.
Right.
And I was so irritated. And I was like, never mind. Like, just forget it. Don't even care anymore at this point.
Well, usually arguments they're not isolated incidents. It's a culmination of what I've been thinking, what I've been irritated about, or something that I may feel isn't fair or whatever, and the same thing with you.
It could also even be a culmination of what your friends say about your spouse or your family says about your spouse.
Or what kind of media you're consuming or reading or whatever. It is very contextual. No one gets mad. No one has a huge knockdown, drag-out fight at, what, you left the phone there? No, of course not.
It's like it's the mountain of, like the dam full of water behind all of that stuff. And
exactly.
So all of that to say, we had this really dumb sort of triggering event, the haircut conversation. And like, if I'm going to have long hair, how about you do the dishes while I take a bath and while I wash my hair and while I blow dry my hair, clean up. Like that doesn't seem unreasonable for me to ask. Like, it's a lot of work to keep my hair clean and long and all that stuff. And so we ended up just going back and forth forever. And it kept coming back to this, like, you assumed that I was saying that you don't do the dishes at all.
Right.
And you kept going, well, I don't clean the house ever. Like, you kept saying things like that. And I was like, well, for one, I never, ever said that. And so I ended up.
So I'm sorry. I assumed a couple of things and you made broad statements that weren't really helpful. In previous podcasts, we've talked about the danger of saying words like, or using words in an argument, or just in general sometimes, always and never, you never XYZ, or you're always like this, or blah, blah, blah. And and this is an important thing, one of your speaking styles is, believe it or not, you're kind of dramatic.
Whoa.
Right?
Yes.
And you make very broad generalizations, and so do I. I think we all do. However, in very specific instances, when the stakes are really high, like how are you and I getting along in our entire marriage, I don't take kindly to broad statements.
It's triggering to you.
Yeah, because they don't help. And I'm like, wait a minute, I do the dishes a zillion times a day, right? But it wasn't enough.
Exaggerated statement. He does the dishes a zillion times a day.
I just got
weird.
busted. Oh, wow.
Gosh,
Bubba strange. Busted. Okay.
Glad that you figured that one out.
That's okay. That's funny. I in my mind, I do the dishes. I do the dishes often, and for you were probably had some backstory about your hair or the time that you take to have to do the things that you have to do as a woman, as a female, that I don't have to do as a man, which has a bunch of gender cultural constructs around it. And you maybe were meaning, hey, it would be a lot more helpful if you actually stepped up your game from where you're at now to have me not think about this, to not have it compartmentalized in my mind, and it would just be a relief to you.
Yeah.
And I obviously didn't take it that way. And like I said, one fight isn't just about one thing.
But at some point during the argument, I was very clear in saying, look, I did not say you're bad at doing these things. I want you to do them more when I am washing my hair, blah, blah, blah. And it was like Seth wouldn't accept it. Can you tell me what that was like in your mind? What were you doing?
I had a real need, or I had a weird, in the moment obsession, not really obsessed, but I didn't feel like I was being heard, and I needed to feel heard and understood by you. So I kept on trying to use example after example to help you understand, and maybe you weren't, and then it just got off track.
I was understanding, but you and I were not talking about the same things. I was literally saying, I just want you to do this thing more. And you were like trying to say, are you saying I don't do this at all? And see, those are two different conversations.
Right.
More is different than never. Right. And so in all of that, I kept having this image come into my mind, and it just kept coming in over and over and over again. It's like, okay, I'm going to draw this out on a piece of paper, and it's going to seem like I'm totally rude, but I need to just make sense of what I'm seeing in my head. And so what I wrote here, and I'll hold it closer in a minute here. So you can see it says upset here, and it says solution over there. And what I was showing is that the line on the top, the sort of straight line from upset to solutions, was how I was trying to solve the problem. Like over here at upset, it's, I feel like I have to do more work because I have long hair and I'm a girl and I want you to up your game so that this isn't as stressful for me. And the solution is over here, do the dishes more, help out with vacuuming, help put the kids to bed without like making me feel bad for it. But Seth literally would not accept that. He would not accept that. You were just like going, do you show the path? You were just going, do it one more time. And it was the weirdest thing because it was like, there's an answer right here. There is an answer. I'm not sure why this is so hard. And so it was super frustrating. And like I said, I pulled the piece of paper out. I drew this note. Our kid did highlighter all over it. That's the highlighter part. That's right. Our kids. But, and so that was sort of the beginning of realizing like we can fight differently. We don't have to fight the way we've always fought. And the reason that it says solution in the circle is because of a chalkboard thing that I have in our house. And I actually made a poster PDF that you can get on our website that's downloadable, printable. You can hang it up in your house.
Right.
And it just says the word solutions, like in big font, and it's broken up because I hung it in our living room because I need it when we're starting to fight or we are not making sense of each other or even our kids are getting upset. I point at it and I say, bring me and they go solution, right?
John Gottman, which I love and we talk about all the time, has done 35 plus years of research on couples, and he's broken it down to an actual scientific process. And what you see here, these squiggly lines, and why I couldn't hear what she was saying was only because of a thing we call flooding. And we've all been flooded before. And John Gottman's research suggests that when we are flooded in an argument or in a high stress situation, we literally cannot listen on a level that makes any sense.
Well, so another term for it is flipping your lid. So there's this brain, like a hand brain diagram where they talk about this being like this
is your brain stem.
And the top part of your brain is the more sort of thinking
your
part.
cerebellum and your
cerebellum's like down there.
No, it's your brainstem, cerebellum, and
anyway, so
you want to know the lobes of the brain?
Lisa lobes?
No, your frontal lobe,
prefrontal cortex.
Kind of, yes, goes. You flip your lid, so it's in the front for a reason. This is where you do your best thinking, strategic thinking, logical thinking, grounded thinking. And when we flip our lid and become flooded, poof, we go to we use
our like primal monkey brain,
amygdala, right?
Yeah,
right.
And so what happens in that moment is you're not. People who have flipped their lid, you see this with kids all the time, they're not receptive to what the information you're going to tell them is. So if your toddler drops their popsicle, you've got another one in the freezer, but they cannot go, oh, I'm going to get another popsicle in 7 seconds.
Right.
They're like, my popsicle, I'm going to die.
Right. And they're crying and throwing a fit.
Adults do the same exact thing.
Right.
And so there's a couple things around understanding that flipping your lid is a real thing. And it takes about 20 minutes of calming, not talking, not anything for that lobe to come back down or whatever, to anti-flip, to flop your lid.
Yes, to flop. So this is, I was flooded. I flipped my lid. And there's let's talk about for a minute the other physical manifestations of flipping your lid. For guys, a lot of times it's clenched fists. For both males and females, you might start sweating. Your heart starts beating really fast.
You can feel like the fire. You can feel like
You clench your jaw and you kind of
tense up.
Yeah, tense up. And so those are very, very important. In one of the shows, I don't know which one it was, we talked about the biology of the body and how if we pay attention to that, it can really just give us a lot of markers to be like, whoa, I'm hungry. Chill out. Don't do something crazy, or I'm really flooded right now, take a break. And it's really important for the person who is not flooded. In some cases, both, which that really can be a disaster.
Yeah.
The other person who is not flooded to recognize the signs in their partner and say, in a oh, you're so mad, you're
just flooded, you turd.
Right, and that's just worse. It's like
you literally. So let's talk through some of the times when we've had that happen, where
right.
I have known that you were flooded, but in the moment when he's been flooded, he doesn't know that he's flooded. He just feels like, yeah, my wife is the worst human on the planet, and she can excuse herself to F herself. Like,
right.
You hate my guts when you're flooded because your brain is like in fight, flight, freeze, or faint mode. Like, you just want to like rip someone apart.
Get back mode and
fight.
That happened in it was a recent argument. And that was a rough one.
Yes. But as the partner, when you see that your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend is flooded, do not keep talking to them. You can say, I'm going to give you 30 minutes to cool off, but don't be like, you need to calm down, sir. Like, don't do that. Just be like, hey, we can talk about this in a little bit. I'm sorry that I made you so upset. That wasn't my intention. I'm not going to do that again. Whatever that looks like. And if you're the person who is flooded, start understanding that about yourself. Start being smart about how your brain works and how your body works.
Right.
And that you can actually do things about it. You can say, when you feel that first like wave of heat come, or sometimes maybe you'll get like sweaty on your forehead, or you'll flush, like your cheeks will get red or hot or whatever. If you feel those triggering things, you feel them, they're like a warning sign. Those are like a stop talking, go somewhere else, sit somewhere else. Just don't do this for the next 30 minutes. Like, don't. And that's fine. That is fine.
It's completely fine. And oftentimes there's this dynamic in couples therapy. Oftentimes one person is the pursuer and another person is the distancer. And if I'm flooded and I'm like, I need you to hear what I'm saying, then I'm going to pursue you even more and push you. And sometimes it can get crazy, but I want to back up for a minute. And I really liked what you said about you have to know yourself and spend some time to look back on the arguments that you've had with your partner. And you're going to spend some time when you're in a really calm state, when just like a normal day, you're just chilled out. Set an alarm and say, I'm going to write down some things. I've observed myself acting this way in arguments. I'm going to make some tools here, some directives here while I'm in a calm state that will help me, that will trigger myself to get out of the craziness, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of a sidetrack, but not really. I listened to a wonderful podcast today, and this guy talked about an intervention that he does, and this guy's not a therapist, he's just a super smart guy. An intervention that when he has arguments with his spouse, he figured this out about himself a couple years back, and he actually, in a calm state, writes himself a letter to himself. So it's like, it's not dear Seth. It's like, Seth, yo, you're mad right now. Is this going to matter? Is this going to bring calmness or togetherness or connectivity with your spouse, whatever you're saying? And so you write yourself a letter, and that can look like anything you want it to. But the main point of it is you do some bullet points that will trigger you to de-escalate, to self-regulate, to bring yourself down. And it may be like, take 30 minutes, Seth. Take 30 minutes, because you know the outcome if you go back in there. You know the outcome if you pursue Melanie in that way while you're in this state. Go take a walk, sit under a tree, I don't know, journal, listen to music, do whatever, punch something. Whatever it is, go do it right now, Seth. You will be glad you did. And then you give that letter to your partner to read when you're in an argument.
Does it have a name?
No. And I have never heard of this intervention.
Sounds like I need to design something.
No, really, we actually do. I haven't heard this intervention in all my work. I mean, it's
map. It's a fight map.
But anyway, with that letter, I would give it to you, and you would read it and say, I'm pulling out the letter, and I can't go, F that letter is stupid. No, it's in a time of calmness, we have to agree, okay, read the letter. And I have to sit here and listen to you read the letter. Seth, yo, you're not going to be happy if you keep on doing this.
Yeah.
And whatever. So I just thought that was like a really beautiful intervention. And that guy couldn't have written that letter if he didn't spend some time in self-reflection and identifying the things and making mental notes or heart notes or whatever of what he values in a relationship and the kind of husband, the kind of man he wants to be in that relationship. And that letter is like dude, stop this crap out. Get yourself together.
Stop this crap out.
Stop this. This is not who you are. This is not what you want. And you know that it won't be good, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like punching yourself in the gut, which I love kind of interventions like that are like wake-up calls, right? But the key is know yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So if you don't know yourself, go listen to podcasts, read books, sit down and journal, go get therapy. That's the most important step right there.
Yeah.
But I had to share that because it was like kind of serendipitous. I randomly listened to that podcast today.
Yeah. Another thing that makes me think of too is that there is a quote that Dr. Corey Allen said on his podcast, Sexy Marriage Radio. And I often think of this, unfortunately, after like an hour of us fighting, I think, would you want to be married to yourself? And I switch that in arguments. Would you want your spouse to speak to you the way you just spoke to them? Right? So would I want Seth to say the things that I just said to him in the voice, in the vocal tone that I said it, with the face that I made when I said it? Would I be okay with him? And that's actually something you get upset about. You get mad that you're like, I could never talk to you like that. And so that's actually a helpful thing for me to know myself and be like, maybe I should chill on the like ugly eye rolling business and be respectful when I am in an argument or when we're in a disagreement. And that is a huge thing too, that we had this conversation the other day about anger just being a construct kind of a deal, which we talked about in another video. And there's also a poster on anatomyofmarriage.com of the umbrella. And so in that, when we said I think it was this conversation. No, it was a different conversation we had the other night.
Different argument.
It wasn't an argument, actually. It was just a conversation where we were saying that, there really isn't anything that we need to fight about. Why are we fighting about it?
So what you're going to have to break that down because
I'll break it down for you. I'm going to break it down.
There's nothing to fight about.
Yeah. What would we fight about?
There's a ton of stuff to fight about.
Like?
Okay. On this same podcast, and I don't know. It's like, I'm just a lifelong learner. No, like in all graduate studies or whatever and practicing therapy for 12 years, I had never heard, you know what, I've probably learned a lot of stuff and just forgot it and then hear it again and think, oh, I've never heard that.
Me too. I always think that when I'm like, oh, that's a new idea. Doubt it.
I used to work with a guy who was much older than me, and he always said, and he was Southern, he's like, boy, I've done forgot more than you know. I always thought it was funny. Yeah,
that's a good one.
I know. Anyway, there is two styles that I don't think I've ever heard of, but there's a huge difference between a disagreement and an argument.
And not needing to fight. Have we put a third one in there?
No.
Okay.
And what I get hung up on is from family of origin stuff. I have always felt like, well, we have to be on the same page with everything. What? You don't like steak? What? And then I take some sort of weird offense to it. And you know what I'm saying? No, it's like I don't really do that anymore, but it's the classic, like, I'm super excited about this. I want other people too. What, you're not? And then that kind of puts a rain on my parade. But that is just a disagreement. That's not an argument. Like, no, I refuse to wash the dishes and I'm not going to. That usually turns into an argument. So, again, this is just...
But let me unpack what I was saying.
It's like I'm 18 years old and don't even know anything.
18? Be like 8.
Okay.
But the thing that I was saying a minute ago is that there legitimately is nothing that we need to argue about. We are fully capable thinking humans. We have hearts and minds and emotional selves. Why do we need to argue about anything? Why can't I tell you, hey, I don't enjoy your underwear hanging on the truck rear view mirror because you're...
What are you talking about? Seriously.
Because you take weird cold dips every morning and have sopping wet underwear all the time.
It's called cold fusion therapy.
Oh, geez.
Get it right or pay the price.
Anyway, there is no reason that we should be emotionally immature so much so that we can't hear that and go, what's a solution? Ding.
Right.
Oh, I could easily say, oh, well, you know what, Melanie, I like to leave them out there because there's not a good place in the house to put them. And then I, being a good emotionally developed person, can say, oh, I see that side of your conversation. I get that. There really is nothing that requires fighting as the solution. There isn't.
Oh, okay. So I honestly wasn't understanding your question.
Now
I was
you
like,
do.
Is this rhetorical? Or I don't know.
Rhetorical? Did you lose your train of thought?
You just did to me what I do to you all the time.
Yeah.
You're like, great, podcast is over. Usually fighting doesn't bring solutions. Just people get flooded and their feelings hurt and you don't resolve anything. So, but when you say fighting is no good or whatever, or why do we need to fight? There's a zillion reasons to fight. We have disagreements. You do stuff that doesn't.
I'm sorry. Does anyone see that he's fighting about me saying there's no reason to fight?
No. I'm flooded. I'm like the puffer fish in Nemo.
That was good.
Yeah.
But I want to say that because I don't think people actually think that's an option. It is an option. Response flexibility. You have a choice in how you respond to things. So I could say to you, oh, Seth, I just crashed the car. You could yell in my face. You could say, oh my gosh, are you okay? You could say, have you called the insurance company? You said, did you call 911? I'm so mad at you. What's wrong with you? You always do this. There's 1,000 ways that you could respond. We always go to the ones that we learned, but maybe, just maybe, we don't need to fight over anything.
Right.
Maybe if we get in an argument, and I mean, let's think about all the things we've actually ever fought about. What is it? How much luggage to bring to South Carolina? Where are the dishes are put away?
Me wanting to buy stuff, you wanting to be minimalist, or
don't bring that up. There is literally nothing that we couldn't have a lovely and polite conversation over instead of fighting. And it's stupid that no one says you really don't need to fight about this or anything for that matter.
So it's unlearning a lot of stuff that culture teaches us. Obviously.
I'm going to make a poster that just says, you do not need to fight about this. I like that.
Okay. So what is the thing? Is it, you don't need to fight about it. You need to talk rationally about it. You need to be straightforward with your emotions. You need to listen to your partner's thoughts and not be offended. Or if it does offend you, say that, use the clearing structure. What you just said offends me. Or,
there's no fighting is not fighting isn't an answer that is going to be super helpful no matter what. So fighting is like taking the long way to get to the place you're going. So it's like there's one drive takes 5 minutes and you're looking at your Google Maps, right? A 5-minute drive to the park you want to go to, or there's the back roads and it takes 35 minutes. That's a fight. A fight is not. Again, it's this.
It's not the solution, right?
Yeah, like that's the 5-minute drive. This is the 35-minute drive. That's the case with every argument, everything, ever, always. Like.
So what about little mild arguments that kind of let the fizz out of the bottle?
Yes, and that actually leads me to what I wrote down there. Little fights, little fights more often are better.
Right.
And I wouldn't even say they're fights. They're just like expressing needs and wants and desires. And here's a really big reason why I'm bringing this up. You often get mad at me, or have in the past gotten angry at me, that I tell you all the time, just like every day, like, oh, please don't put your shoes there. Please don't put the thing there.
Right.
Can you take out the trash? Like whatever that, and that is not a fight. That's a request, FYI. But you get annoyed with that stuff. And then at like 6-month intervals, or maybe 4-month intervals, you get really mad at me and you say, I don't tell you how to do all these things all the time, every single day.
Right.
Well, had you told me all those little things every single day, I would have learned I would have learned your preferences as a partner. If you don't like me to put my phone here, I'm not going to know by you letting me put my phone here every day for 6 months. And then on the 6th month and 1 day, you get super freaked out and mad at me.
Right. So this one, and coming from personal experience, is really hard, really difficult for conflict avoidant people. And again, this comes from my foo, because we were like family of origin. This is like, well, does it, because I always second guess myself. Does it really matter that the phone's there? No, I'm not going to, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to spend the energy about it and have a conversation about it. And then the phone gets left there 500 more times. Then I'm like, are you kidding me? And then there's a big argument, right? So there's indirect and non-direct communication. I am more of a indirect person, conflict avoidant person, and you are boom out there. Of course, this is a thing. So this has been an adjustment that's taken years. And I don't know, I think we had an argument about this a couple of months ago, and I actually wrote down in I have a daily like planner journal thing to complain to Melanie. Like I wrote it down. Today, take a shower, do stuff for work, exercise, pick up the kids, complain to Melanie. Like literally. And I did, and it was just a complaint about anything, I don't know, traffic or something that I may have been annoyed at. But I think what that did, and it's a real practice because I'm still not, it doesn't come second nature like it does to you. I've been telling you things like, hey, when you whatever, like I think a couple of nights ago, you said something and it just was like, I really don't care about that. And in fact, I'm annoyed at it. I was quiet for a minute and then I was just like, well, should I not make it a big deal, whatever. But then I said, yo, I'll be honest with you. I don't care about that, what you're doing. And that ended up being an actual revolutionary conversation.
Yeah. So
you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah. So think about if you hadn't complained to me, that conversation wouldn't have happened.
Right.
But when we say complain, we don't mean like, just like, oh, this is blah, blah, like not that. Like it's just like you're communicating how you feel in small increments that are digestible. Like I can't take a pharmacy worth of medicine at once. I can take one pill at once.
That's right.
And so I think that that's the thing that I always am like, it's frustrating to me that used to make you upset because to me, that's how I let you know the preferences that I have and what I thought you would do to me to let me know the preferences that you had.
Yeah. It's funny because like certain types of people have come from certain types of families, and in my family, when mom and dad would fuss, they were like really big arguments. And just as a kid, I picked up like, okay, you don't complain. You don't rock the boat, really. You just keep to yourself and kind of keep cool, right? And
to avoid an argument.
To avoid an argument. And you kind of rationalize things. Well, I won't say anything about it this time because I love her and it blah, 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 doesn't matter. And I'm being the oldest kid, but you being the youngest kid, you're like, whatever, and that's just your style. So it's really interesting, and that could be another family of origin podcast around that. But that is definitely our situation. And guess what? When we talk about it, we're aware of it, and we're making the needed changes and being really intentional, writing down, complain to Melanie. That sounds super silly, but the results from doing something that sounds silly aren't so silly at all, and they're good.
Yeah. And another thing too that's really important in this, and is something that my neighbor said to me, we were talking about this one time, and the concept of working from your strength, working from your strongest space. And I guess you could say like the strongest point of connection with your spouse, but also really like the idea of like working from your strongest points, right? So like where I love you the most, I'm going to bolster that and build a bridge to you that is like built out of love and kindness and thoughtfulness for you. That doesn't mean I'm going to be a doormat and you're going to treat me terribly.
Right.
Or vice versa, that I'm going to treat you terribly and whatever. But it's like, how do we reach to one another knowing that we disagree on something, but like lovingly being like, we're going to solve this together. This is no big deal. I'm strong. You're strong. This is not a big deal. We don't need to fight about this. We can have differing opinions on how many suitcases we need to pack to go visit your in-laws. And we can also solve it easily, gently, lovingly together. Just because we've never seen that happen doesn't mean we can't make that happen.
Right.
We got this. We got this.
Yes. And another intervention around that, which you would do at a very calm, collected, low stress state, is think of 3 to 5 things that reminds you, not like, oh, just remembered why you married that person. I think that's lame. But remind yourself, hey, what is the absolute one of the best things that I love about you? And you write that down.
My hair.
Well, yeah, that's great. It's your personality.
Oh.
No, it's a bunch of things. But the point of it is, when you're almost in an argument, you pull out, okay, I think we both need this right now. And what that does, and here's another thing, you change your state, because arguments and flooding and all this stuff is so much about biology. And again, Gottman and other researchers, the literature suggests, or not suggests, it proves basically that when you, here, take my hand, when you touch and hold each other, and it doesn't have to be anything other than like touching skin, okay, like it could be like that. It decreases your heart rate. Your cortisol, your stress hormones go down, right? Your breathing changes. And when that happens, guess what? You're flipping your lid back down. So back to the 3 to 5 points on the intervention. Write down 3 to 5 things that is absolutely wonderful, beautiful, golden that your spouse does, and something you're just, you know what? You could shoot me in the leg and I would still think this about you, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
It's a weird analogy.
Well, yeah, I know. That's all I could think of. And pull out those, have the cards in your bedroom or in your dresser or whatever, and say, I need both of us to read these right now.
Yeah.
Okay? And then you touch and you read them. And I guarantee that whatever argument, whatever conflict that you guys had, you just shaved probably 3 hours off of what it could have been, right?
Yeah,
and then you're back to normal.
You took the fastest route.
Exact.
To your success and your solution, right? So yeah, I just wanted to do an episode about fighting. It kind of, this whole thing with the scribbly notebook paper made me think that this was a worthwhile conversation to have.
Yeah.
Again, oh, sorry.
No, I think it's an amazing conversation to have. And let
me tell the people about the website. So go to anatomyofmarriage.com for your free printable PDF that says solutions. It's the exact, it's based off the chalkboard sign that I made that's hanging on our living room wall. I'll show you that.
And another, no, I want to say something.
Let me say stuff. We can bring a solution right now. We don't need to fight.
Where's my letter?
But also you can get the Anger is a Construct PDF, the printable PDF for poster thing. Like, seriously, these things are made. They're just for you. I'm going to post a picture of this, a nicer picture of this on our Instagram probably. And I think I took a picture of it before the kids drew on it. So that's good. But use those tools, use those resources. Fighting doesn't have to look like what it looked like when you were a kid or when you were growing up. Fighting actually doesn't really need to be a thing the way we think it does. So you know, also use the idea of taking the shortest route to your solution instead of the long way. I don't know, but what were you going to say?
Think the biology about it. And a lady who we really like and respect, who has been on the podcast, Dr. Claudia Groff-Grounds, has written recently, within the last year, a book about this, and the title is
We've Had This Fight Before. I just got the book. It's amazing. I just started it and it's so good. We'll put a link to it in the website and everything. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, it talks exactly about a lot of the things we talk about, but she's a PhD, amazing, smart person who...
We call her Dr. Claudia Groff Coffee Grounds.
I'm sure she's never heard that before.
Dr. Claudia Coffee Grounds.
Right. One other thing is, if you have not checked out marriagesupply.com, go do it. They have couples boxes, they have honeymoon boxes, and these are subscriptions, so you get new boxes every month, which is like awesome if you want to change things up in your quest for increased intimacy, increased connection and pleasure. Go to marriagesupply.com, enter the promo code 10 from AOM for 10% off. marriagesupply.com. Thank you.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye.